Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Keeping up with today's insane release schedule for the PS4 and Switch is driving me crazy. Everywhere I look, there is a smaller niche game coming out from Limited Run, Special Limited Run, Play Asia, I Am 8-Bit, Special Limited Reserve, Ultra Rare Limited Reserve, Special 1200 copies made, order now or don't get it ever. It can be maddening. That's not even counting the AAA releases and regular releases. But one thing that is sorely missing, that I really miss from last generation, PS3, 360, is those sweet middle-of-the-road games. We don't see those as much anymore, not nearly as much, and I really gravitated towards those releases last gen. Now granted, they might not have been the most critically well-received, or they might not have got the best review scores or best word-of-mouth from critics, but myself and other players that I know really enjoyed the middle-of-the-road games. And what I mean by that is not quite AAA, not quite this niche, overly stylized retro shit that we get floods of these days. I'm talking about good old middle-of-the-road games that got 6s, 5s, 7s, and I really took for granted back then. I mean, I didn't really realize that they are a disappearing art form. Today's episode, we're going to take a look at some of my favorite middle-of-the-road releases from last generation. If you have a PS3 and 360, you're covered. Thanks for watching, guys, as always, and I hope you enjoy. Now, I couldn't dream of starting an episode off like this without mentioning one of my all-time favorite crowd-based beat-em-ups in the vein of Dynasty Warriors and now Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Fate. The crowd-based beat-em-up genre is here to stay. Some of my early favorites released exclusively on the 360 was definitely the 99 Nights series. I've talked about this series many times before. The first game was one of my first experiences on the 360. Getting that shiny new HD TV and playing this was a real treat. I just remember vividly running across these barren landscapes, seeing a mountain in the background and seeing thousands of orcs and goblins rushing over the mountain and then just unleashing brutal, screen-filled hack-and-slash gameplay. A slow game. The game was very slow in terms of running speed. It took you a long time to run around these vast areas, and the game was extremely repetitive, as are all of the crowd-based hack-and-slash games. What you do in the first 5 minutes is the same thing you're going to be doing the entire game, but I just like the repetition. I enjoy the rush of running into a screen filled with enemies and hacking and slashing until they're all gone. The game focuses on a story between humans and goblins, and it's a really, I thought, a pretty cool storyline. You see it from the human side of view, and then halfway through you shift over and experience it from the goblin side of view. And I gotta say, it was kind of emotional playing as the humans and slaughtering these goblins, and then halfway through playing through the goblins' eyes and seeing these ruthless humans going and slaughtering women and children, goblins. It tugged at my heartstrings, man, I'm not gonna lie. A really cool graphical style. Everything was really shiny and it was very detailed. One of my first experiences on the Xbox 360. The game looked very good for the time. The sequel I never thought we would get. Let's admit it, the first one was not a big hit. The second one came out after a few delays a few years later, sporting a much darker tone. It was more violent, more bloody, lots of bloodshed on the screen. Overall, a faster game. Still thousands of enemies on screen at once. Some really cool screen clearing attacks. Really cool characters in this. The CG cutscenes were always very impressive. I really enjoyed the darker tone in the second game. I enjoyed the more blood. I really enjoy both of these games from a crowd-based brawler point of view. In my opinion, some of the best, most creative. They are old and dated, but they are not to be forgotten. 99 Nights is a gem of a series, and you should check it out if you enjoy Hyrule Warriors and the other games of that nature. Next up, we've got a couple of underrated hack-and-slash games, and I always group these together. I remember back in the day on the 360 and PS3, these were going to war for my favorite. Like, what do I like better, Viking or Conan? I don't know. For some reason, these were always in competition for my favorite. Conan I got on a day that my kid got a straight A report card. I'll never forget it. My mom took him to GameStop as a reward, said he could pick out any game he wanted. Ratchet and Clank had just come out that day on the PS3. He chose that. I saw Conan in the corner of my eye, and I went for a Hail Mary. I said, Mom, you know, I know I'm an adult and all, but will you buy me this game? She said, oh, sure, honey. Oh, great. I love you, Mom. Thank you. One of the last games I remember my mom buying me just because I wasn't a pain in the ass. So Conan was great. Viking is great as well. Two very different games. Now, in Viking, you play as Scarin, who is a warrior that is going against Hell's forces. Goddess Freya has chosen him to be the chosen one to kind of take it to Hell's forces and reclaim the land. In this, it's an open world, and it's a pretty big, expansive environment. And as you pull up your open world map, there's different encampments and different missions that you can choose from. And you walk all the way there, and along the countryside, you're going to see Hell's forces. Pretty brutal hack-and-slash combat system. Some quick-time events for the bigger enemies. But I really enjoyed the violence and brutality You have a axe and a sword for combinations, and I thought the combos were really cool. It had some light RPG elements where you can level up and learn new moves as you go. The way the game progressed was really cool though. You'd go from these different encampments and you'd free your fellow Viking brethren. And once you got enough of these guys freed and taken on different missions, there's some light exploration too. There's different encampments set up and you can kind of go in and explore those. And some light platforming, freeing different Vikings. Once you've got enough of your Vikings freed, you launch a giant like war scale, huge, epic in scope. And it's just all-out chaos as you're battling through these Hell's Legion, dragons flying over top, flames coming down, body parts flying everywhere. A really good open-world, bloody game. I really enjoyed Viking. Conan is a more straightforward, linear progression in terms of a straight hack and slash. There's no overworld exploration. It's just level to level. And I really enjoyed the take on Conan. It's not based on the films, but more the older comics, and I thought that was really well done. Ron Perlman does a great job as the voice of Conan in this. And you talk about brutal bloodshed and brutality. This game has combos that are specifically targeted, like whirlwind targets, and it kind of spins around and chops off the legs. There's different combos to disarm and cut off both arms. A couple of counters have you slice them in half, and you can see the entrails just shred out and intestines fly out. An extremely violent game. If you like your gore and your violence, definitely check out Conan. A really cool kind of like comic book water palette style graphical look. I really enjoyed Conan. Some of the boss battles are like multi-layered, lots of inspiration from God of War in terms of boss battles, multi-layered, quick time events, awesome epic boss battles, great level variety. These are two hack and slash gems that definitely deserve more love. One of my favorite games from last generation, we've got Wet. This is from Bethesda, and this game really is an excellent homage to like Tarantino Grindhouse sort of films, rockabilly soundtrack and all. I really enjoyed the graphical style. The gameplay, while a little bit sloppy, was totally badass. Ruby Malone is a vicious mercenary for hire. The first mission, I remember, you are taking out this guy and hunting down a businessman and getting a briefcase. And it turns out this briefcase has a heart in it that's going to save this businessman's son. And from there, you are hired for more missions and you get sent around the globe. The main hook of this game that I thought was so cool was the acrobatic gunplay and swordplay. You can slide on your knees and it kind of goes into a slow motion, and you can target one enemy and then aim and fire both weapons, target multiple enemies at once. You can incorporate your sword into your combos. Some very razor sharp, brutal gameplay. I enjoyed the slowdown when you're diving, kind of taking cues from Max Payne, other games like that. The bullet time, slow motion gameplay is really cool. Being able to target multiple enemies is really cool. The sword adds a nice tone to the violent gameplay. I love the Tarantino style, as I mentioned earlier. A real Grindhouse effect to the game. Really cool being able to take down different assassins and different mercenaries all across the world. There are some quick time events. There's some like turret sections where you're on top of vehicles. Overall, a great action game with some really cool gunplay, some really cool swordplay. Slow motion is done very right. A very violent game. Really cool storyline. Wet is a great action game. Man, some of my favorite games from last generation is definitely the Overlord series. This came along, the first one, at the very right time for me. I had the original on the Xbox 360. This right here is a PS3 version. It's called Overlord Raising Hell. It adds some extra content on map, other improvements that come in the form of Raising Hell, subtitle added onto this. I think the frame rate was better on 360, and maybe it ran a little bit better on 360, but it still looks great on the PS3. These games are comedic gold. It's kind of like a Fable game in terms of the way your character is walking around a fantasy, high fantasy environment. Except you have minions at your disposal. Now think of Pikmin on steroids or Pikmin from hell. You've got these little gremlins type goblins. They're called minions. They're violent as hell. They're vicious. You can control them in real time. So while you're moving the Overlord around these fantasy stages, getting different story missions, going into towns, getting information, controlling these little minions is so much fun. A highlight for me, when you get to the first town of Spree and you're kind of ravaging through the town, and these little minions are kind of smashing through barns and kicking over pumpkins, and they emerge from this barn, and you've got pumpkins stuck on your head, and they're drinking all the ale, and they're pissing on the crops and pissing farmers off. Overlord is a strong, silent type, but he's funny just in his being. He's evil. Now the quest in Overlord has you going to avenge your fallen Overlord that has previously been killed, and these 7 heroes that defeated the last Overlord have all become drunk with power. They're all based on the 7 deadly sins. You've got the gluttony, big fat guy. Really cool and creative enemy types, and it was just a lot of fun using the minions. They are different colors for different abilities. You've got the brown minions that are brawlers. You've got the green that can survive poison, the blue that can breathe underwater, red can survive fire, things of that nature. So there's some environmental puzzles that you solve using the minions, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun to use the combat and watch these minions attack and gang up on people and just shred them to pieces. Very good, creative, high fantasy. And this is by Codemasters, who are known for like their badass racing games like Dirt and Grid. They did a great take on the action-adventure genre. Sequel being more of the same. Very nice, bright environments, a winter theme. Once again, playing as the Overlord, minions, more of them, different abilities. All in all, amazing, high-action fantasy games done right. The comedic value is there. The black humor is there. These are amazing action-adventure games. Don't miss them. They're dirt cheap. I had a hell of a time with Overlord. A game that I personally really enjoyed, one of my favorites from last generation, was Remember Me, and this game kind of got shit on as well. They complained about the combat system, complained about the platforming, complained about everything. One thing that was universally praised was one of my favorite features as well, but in this game you play as Nilin, who is working for an underground resistance called the Errorists. Now in the beginning of the game she has been captured and she has had her memories wiped clean. With the help of a mysterious man named Edge, you are kind of broken out of this facility. After being freed, you are on the hunt to take down this mega corporation called Memorize, as well as regain your lost memories. Now, this game is a third-person action game with some light platforming. Now, it's pretty straightforward platforming. You're never going to wonder where to jump onto, grab onto. It's enjoyable. I thought the environments were very well done. The game visually looks amazing. A very nice, futuristic Paris representation. Looks great. Nilin's a really cool character. The combat I thought was amazing. I really enjoyed the presence system where you can kind of customize your own combos and kind of assign different nodes and kind of create your own custom combos and chain together these awesome attacks. There's cooldowns, there is overloads, there's all kinds of really cool effects, there's all kinds of really cool enemies, and the combos are incorporated in a way that you have to really think about the way you arrange your presence. The breakout feature for Remember Me, though, was the memory remix sections. You're able to enter other people's memories and kind of remix outcomes, alter their memories and the perception of what really happened. And the way that incorporates that into the storyline is a sight to behold. I guarantee you, you will enjoy these memory remix sections. It's a very brilliant feature to the game. Overall, I thought Remember Me was fantastic, a breath of fresh air. The memory remixes were the highlight of the game for me. But overall, I enjoyed the entire game. I enjoyed the combat. I enjoyed the platforming. The whole look of the game I thought was a breath of fresh air. There was supposed to be a sequel made to this, but it was scrapped early on. It started off as a PS3 exclusive, eventually went multi-platform. Remember Me is a fantastic game. It's dirt cheap. Do not pass this one up. Ninja Blade I've talked about time and time again. Back when From Software announced two brand new exclusives, one for the PS3, one for the 360. PS3 got Demon Souls. We all know how that turned out. The 360 got Ninja Blade, and I thought this game was over the top, insanity, amazing. Tons of QuickTime events, QuickTime event overload. Some say there's too much QuickTime events. The reason I enjoyed them so much is because they're so over the top. You're going to be sliding down a building, fighting a giant arachnid monster, spider, going down, all the while hacking and slashing, killing bats and other flying creatures. Over the top insanity. The combat has you alternating between three weapons. You've got your dual blades that are lightning quick. You've got your single powerful sword slashing. You've got tons of different combos to unlock. You've got wall running. You've got grappling hook shit. You've got all kinds of amazing action game tropes all put together with some over-the-top bosses that From Software charm. This game deserved more. It deserved better. Go back, play it, love it. This is an over-the-top action game done right. It deserved more. I feel it should have carried on, got more entries. I thought it was a great game. Great combat system, up there with Ninja Gaiden. I thought it was a great game that got sold short. Now, as memory serves, these games I think came out around the same time. I could be wrong. I remember playing them both around the same time, but Vanquish is a game that I've come to appreciate as the years have gone by. It was kind of labeled as a one-trick pony when it came out. They had the sliding and the slow motion, and they said that's all you do the whole game. It's a one-trick pony. That's blah, blah, blah. But it's so over the top. It's done by Platinum. Visuals are top-notch that hold up to this day. Really cool futuristic storyline, rough and gruff, cigarette-smoking, badass lead character. The gunplay is just freaking insane. The sliding, the dodging, the shooting, all on point. It is a fantastic game. I love the concept. I love Shinji Mikami's vision that started off as Piano 3, morphed into this. A great action game. Binary Domain is much of the same. Not the over-the-stylized, over-the-top flashy, but This game has you gunning down these cyborgs, and what I loved about this is the physics and watching these cyborgs blow apart piece by piece, issuing commands with the headset. I remember doing that. Really cool storyline, great boss battles, amazing gunplay. Some say it was generic, blah 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 blah. I absolutely loved Binary Domain, a great top-notch action shooter that I thought was very well done. These games are dirt cheap. They are great games that are sadly missing from this generation. I miss these middle-of-the-road games. I miss these great gameplay hooks, these over-the-top storylines that are so serious, but it's tough to take them serious because they're taking themselves so serious. But a great couple of shooters. You can't go wrong with either one. Fantastic games, highly recommended. Dark Sector was one of the early games that I played on the PlayStation 3 at a time when the PlayStation 3 was very much struggling for exclusives, struggling for multi-platform games that ran worth a damn. This is one of the first games I remember being on par, equal to the 360 version. This game is a third-person shooter. The special hook of this is that badass glaive that you have, man. You grab this thing and you whip it across and you can decapitate enemies. It comes back to you like a boomerang. Add that with some solid third-person shooting, a pretty cool storyline, and a suit that kind of evolves the more you wear it, and just a badass, vicious, violent glaive gunplay, action gameplay. I thoroughly enjoyed Dark Sector. I beat this game multiple times. A really strong early entry. That glaive is so much fun to wield and throw on the battlefield. Slow motion decapitations. Using the glaive not only as a tool, a weapon, it uses it as an environmental tool to manipulate the environment, trip switches, light things on fire, make things explode, open areas. The glaive is an awesome weapon. I had so much fun using it. Dark Sector is a fantastic early game, one that's definitely recommended if you like violent kind of Gears of War-ish. It's kind of like Gears of War with the glaive. So a great third-person shooter, very dark, great storyline. Dark Sector is worth every penny, that $5 that it costs. The Puppeteer I thought was a fantastic PS3 exclusive, very dark, almost Tim Burton-esque kind of adventure. You're playing as the Puppeteer using these scissors kind of cut through fabric and cut through and platform through the levels. Everything kind of comes down like a slideshow type, almost play setup, like you're watching something on a stage. Very dark and very cartoony-ish, but very dark. I enjoyed the platforming. The storyline was really cool. I love the narration. Everything about this dark fantasy game just came to life, popped off the screen. The visuals were great for the time. I love the scissor gameplay mechanic, cutting through the environment. A very dark adventure. I thought this game was fantastic. Definitely didn't get enough love. The Puppeteer is a fantastic game from Sony. Very original. It did not get the love it deserves. Highly recommend this one. From Capcom, we've got a trio of games I'm going to mention briefly. Bionic Commando is definitely a well-known franchise. It's definitely beloved from the NES. This game really kind of got shit on, and I absolutely loved Nathan Rad Spencer. I thought the grappling hook mechanic was spot on. Tons of fun to use. I thought the gunplay was excellent. Very challenging getting the hang of the grappling hook and using it effectively. Nice, beautiful open worlds. Not open world gameplay, but the worlds were open and stunning, and plenty of uses for the grappling hook. Swinging and getting that momentum going was a sight to behold. It felt great to use. I thought the arm was incorporated very well into boss battles. Overall, I think this game deserves much more attention than it got. I thought it was a great current-gen update to a classic series. Asura's Wrath is just pure, over-the-top insanity. I remember the demo came out for this, and it was really divided players. A lot of people thought it was going to be a quick time fest, and it was it. But the demo really sold the game short. Asura is just a tale of revenge, betrayed by gods, and this is kind of like a sci-fi game where you're just beating the shit out of these huge demigods, and it kind of takes up planets and solar systems, and you're fighting out into outer space, and Asura's got these arms he sprouts out, and just the rage, you feel the rage boiling through this man. He's just fucking insane. The boss battles are awesome. It's a beat 'em up through and through. It's over the top. It had some Street Fighter tie-in DLC that I absolutely loved. Asura is a man on fire. Rage never dies. If you are into over-the-top action, beat 'em up games with some quick-time events and some amazing boss battles and great gameplay. Over the top is a word that can't even best describe this game. It is just true insanity. Never played anything like it in terms of rage, the character, and the anger that you feel consuming his soul. Asura's Wrath is a gem. Dark Void is something I was really looking forward to. I'm such a sucker for a game with a good jetpack. It let me down in some areas, and it was weird having Nathan Drake kind of voice this guy that was kind of like a generic Nathan Drake. I don't mean to say the game is generic, because I really enjoyed it. I played it through and finished it. I really enjoyed the kind of vertical, looking down and shooting gameplay. The third-person gunplay is nothing to write home about. It's not going to win any awards, but I enjoyed the jetpack elements. Flying did have its merit. I had fun doing it. It was a cool game. Got shit on, got labeled generic, average, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a fantastic 3D action shooter. The jetpack segments were great. Dark Void is definitely worth your time and definitely worth your money. $5 again. Great games from Capcom, all of them. An early exclusive on the PlayStation 3, Heavenly Sword, was kind of billed as Girl God of War. It was criticized for its short length and its over similarities to God of War, but really in actuality, it wasn't much like it at all, aside from some QTE events and the hack and slash theme. Nariko was cursed from the beginning for handling this blade. It's a very story driven. Everything was motion capped and acted very well. The acting was believable. Early on, it was a shot in the arm the PlayStation needed. If it was only a little longer, I think critics would have gave it a better review or better outlook, but this came along at a time the PlayStation 3 definitely needed an exclusive. It was a great hack and slash game. It showcased the power with a few slight frame rate problems, but it showed the PlayStation 3 meant business. It could do proper visuals that could rival or surpass a 360. Definitely for fans of hack and slash story focused games. I really enjoyed this one despite its short length. And I gotta give special mention to their follow-up game, Enslaved. This one went multi-platform, and Ninja Theory once again delivered an epic game. This was pretty well received with the critics. It didn't really sell that well, I don't think, but overall, playing as Monkey and playing with Trip, and this is kind of the buddy system done right, as I mentioned previously in Knight's Contract. The whole babysitting mechanic where you kind of have to watch after a character, implemented much more smoothly in Enslaved. The platforming was great. The hack and slash gameplay was really cool. Monkey's a really cool character. The platforming was kind of like Uncharted, but much more forgiving. Still an enjoyable game. A great game on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. A great follow-up from Ninja Theory. Don't miss this one. It's dirt cheap, and it's an amazing game. A great, beautiful world. El Shaddai and Splatterhouse were a couple of games I really enjoyed. Fans of Splatterhouse that bitched about this game, I don't understand you. What more could you want from a modern Splatterhouse, man? This game is violent as hell. Up there with Conan as one of the most violent games I've ever seen in my life. I enjoyed the comedy elements from The Mask. He talked a lot of shit. Rick was under his command at all times, rescuing Jennifer. This was a fantastic update to an old classic. I enjoyed the combos. I enjoyed everything about it. It was a fantastic game. Ability to unlock Splatterhouse 1 through 3. El Shaddai was a really cool hack and slash game, kind of based on Enoch and the some parts of the Bible, if I'm not mistaken, but it was really cool. The watercolor pastel visuals were very trippy, unlike anything I'd seen at the time. There was a lot of hype being made on these visuals. Sadly, the critics thought the gameplay didn't back it up. I really enjoyed the beat-em-up gameplay. I really enjoyed wiping the corruption off the blades and kind of starting a new awesome game. Beautiful visual style, great hack and slash gameplay. Definitely needs more love. Check out El Shaddai. And I want to close out and just bring special mention to one of my early favorites in the PlayStation 3. This game came out and got shit on, man. The motion controls, people hated. They hated the level layouts. They hated everything about this game. You could name it, they hated it. And I was just sitting there scratching my head thinking, man, what the hell? I loved the epic orchestral soundtrack, one of the best I've ever heard, up there with Conan in terms of its sheer epicness. I really enjoyed the motion controls. If you actually held the controller like a sensible person and kind of smoothly rotated, it felt like you were controlling the reins of a dragon. The level design is my biggest problem with this game. I would have much preferred an open world game where you can kind of fly from kingdom to kingdom, swoop down and kind of decimate your foes, hundreds of foes on foot, and kind of fly up into the sky and take different missions. And an overall arcing story would have been badass, but unfortunately the level design and some of the objectives, the escort missions, were mind-numbing. So for me, the only place they dropped the ball with this was the level mission variety. I thought it was dreadful at times. Some missions were really fun, but overall I really liked Lair, and it was the butt of a lot of jokes back then. But you know what? You can probably get this for $2. Definitely check it out. They patched it with regular controls. See if you like that, but it's worth it for the soundtrack alone, and some of those moments of brilliance while flying the dragon can't be underestimated. Lair, check it out, see if you like it. Hope you guys have enjoyed taking a look at some of my favorite personal middle-of-the-road games. Unfortunately, they're a dying genre in my eyes. If I'm missing out on them because I'm blinded by the onslaught of releases that are constantly coming out, please let me know. I do like Inama on the PS4, like Gate of Memories or whatever. I thought that was pretty close to being what I enjoyed from the past games. And there's more games near, there's other games that I'd like to talk about, but that will be a full-blown series review in the near future because I absolutely love Drakengard. Nier. The new Nier game is badass. So please, guys, if I'm missing out some middle-of-the-road games from this generation, let me know. Thank you for watching as always. Next is the Xbox Buyer's Guide. Hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for watching. As always, GamezOfWar is absolutely nothing, and I mean it, nothing without you.
The Rose of Magmel. It beckons even the most restless dead to the Island of the Blessed.
Your home in danger?
Yeah. The darkness is spreading.